The Calgary Flames are division champs. Now they hope to go on a long playoff run. Jess Belmosto of Locked On Flames joins us to preview their series with the Dallas Stars as we get set for the Stanley Cup Playoffs right here on the Locked On NHL Podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to the Locked On NHL podcast. And thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And now it's my pleasure to welcome back to the show a familiar face for Locked On NHL viewers and listeners, Jess Belmosto of Locked On Flames. Jess, are you excited for the playoffs?
Yes, I haven't felt this good about a postseason run in quite some time. So it's nice to see really all the teams just kind of edge their way in or, be the real underdogs. And I think the Flames are just one of those teams that everyone minus Edmonton is rooting for.
Yeah, I would say that's an easy one. I mean, look, the Flames, they're flying a little under the radar because, the Avalanche gets so much attention. The Oilers get so much attention. 50 wins, 111 points, third in the league in goals against, sixth in the league in goals scored, top 10, both power play and penalty kill. Why doesn't this team get quite as much respect and recognition as they probably deserve?
Do you want my honest answer?
Yeah.
Alberta, the market is so small. It's not, this big hoopla of a city like Toronto or, like New York City or anything like that. So there's not a lot of eyes on it. It's, I don't want to call it boring because that's mean and untrue, but there's just not a lot of eyes on a small market like that.
Makes sense. Definitely makes sense. Talk to me about the top line on this team. I mean, they have been electric all year round. And what makes them so special?
The chemistry. They are the only line in hockey this year to have played all 82 games together. So they spent the whole season together, which I think was smart. I don't think that there was ever a reason to break them up. Obviously, Gaudreau got that promotion from the second line to the first line once Sutter took over. And I don't know why every other coach was kind of delaying that. I don't know what the benefit of holding Gaudreau back was, but just having such dynamic playmakers and goal scorers who have this fantastic form of communication and chemistry just has been the true success for this team and really just elevated this team to a whole nother level.
All three of them topping 40 goals this year. Are you concerned about the scoring depth behind Gaudreau, Tkaczuk, and Lindholm?
Not at all. This team really made an effort to put together a roster of players who can score beyond, that top 6, top 9. You look at their fourth line and you have Milan Lucic, who's kind of had a little bit of a late season resurgence. He had one earlier in the year and then kind of fizzled out a little bit. And then Dylan Dubé has been on fire, or was on fire at the end of the season. I think it was 8 goals in the last 7 games. Tyler Toffoli has that playoff experience, so it's not a concern there either. And I think one of the best things about this team is that their defensemen can score. Noah Hannafin, Chris Tanev, more so Rasmus Andersson even. He had a really great bounce back season considering last year he was performing at a level that was below expectation. And to have this kind of breakout season, really, at 24 years old, after losing his D partner, Mark Giordano, to the expansion draft, is really great.
2 years ago, Dallas knocked the Flames out of the playoffs. They went all the way to the Stanley Cup final in the bubble year. Is there a little bit of revenge factor heading into this series for the Flames?
Maybe, but personally, I think that the Flames team from the bubble was completely undisciplined, had no business being in the playoffs, and were lucky to get past Winnipeg in that play-in round, mainly because I believe it was Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler were injured. So they were able to, they kind of got a mulligan there. And I think that the Flames are hungry for a win. I think that they are by far the more competitive and through talented team. They've been pretty lucky this year with goaltending as well. So I think that the Flames are just going to go at this like they would any playoff series, regardless of who the opponent is.
Markstrom with 9 shutouts on the year, but 63 starts. Are you concerned that he may be a little on the tired side heading into the postseason?
Yes and no. I think that Daryl Sutter has this reputation for riding his goaltenders into the ground, and he did that with Markstrom this year. And everybody was kind of screaming on Twitter, like, why isn't Vladar starting? Like, none of these games matter. Or, it would be a game against a team like Chicago or Arizona, and Markstrom would be in net, and everyone's like, you're going to make the playoffs. Why not give this guy a day off? And, but Markstrom is one of those guys who would lay his life on the line for the game of hockey. He would not think twice about doing it. And he had a quote at the end of last season talking about, if you're not upset that we missed the playoffs, then, you're on the wrong team, or like, you don't have the right mindset. And that quote has stuck with me since he said that. And I think that he has enough gas. I think he's always on like a full tank of gas, always. And if not, he can turn it into an electric vehicle and he's good to go. So I don't think this guy could ever stop.
What concerns you most about the Dallas Stars? What aspect of this matchup has you a little bit concerned?
Joe Pavelski. And I just, I think that this Stars team isn't the same team that they were a few years ago. Obviously Tyler Seguin has had a lot of injuries and some pretty intense surgeries, and he's just 30 years old. So he's still a young player, and he's obviously slowed down a little bit. He hasn't really found his offense until late in the season, I believe. And then same thing with Jamie Benn, just not very, the offensive production isn't there the same way as it used to be. So, you have to look out for probably the oldest guy on the team with 37-year-old Joe Pavelski and the rest of that top line. I think that Jason Robertson has been a really fun player to watch break out and just emerge as just a fun player to watch, and someone that's so talented. And same with Hintz. And you just have to watch that top line. But I think it'll be a great matchup between those two top lines.
Should be an entertaining series. Jess, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find you on social media and where they could find the podcast?
Yes. So you can find me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. You can find the show wherever you get Locked On NHL, and we're on YouTube at Locked On Flames as well.
Jess, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting, the playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts.